Right, let me get settled on my bed and let's crack on with the predictions for UFC 98. Firstly, I'm not at all interested in Yoshiyuki Yoshida versus Brandon Wolf, so we can forget about that. I'll start at the bottom and work up, I think. It has to be said that this card is made up mostly of toughers from late seasons and people who have recently all lost. Most of them are coming off losses. I just thought that's interesting to note. We begin with Dave Kaplan, who is 2-2. Wins usually by TKO, loses usually by submission. Lost recently to Junie Browning at the Tough 8 finale. He is facing George Roop, who's 8-4, another tougher who both wins and loses by submission. He's also coming off a loss from the Tough 8 finale. I'm going to say that he will win in the second round by some sort of bar submission, I think. Now, I haven't written down his first name, unfortunately, but Mr. Gusameo is facing Krzysztof Sosnenski, or something like that. I don't know how you pronounce it. Now, Gusameo is 5-1, and he's never been finished. He is coming off a loss. I don't know who I am going to say will win this match, to be totally honest. I don't see Krzysztof giving Gusameo his first finish, so I do believe that if Krzysztof wins, it will be by decision. But I don't know if Gusameo has it in him to actually finish Krzysztof, so I will go for Krzysztof by decision on that one. Felipe Nova, who's just lost actually as in the final of Tough. He is 5-1-1. He wins usually by submission. He's never been finished, and he is facing Kyle Bradley. Kyle's got a brilliant record. It's 13-6. He's got 8 TKO wins and 4 submission wins. But he also loses by TKO and submission. He's on a 2-loss streak, which is dangerous for him because if he loses a third, that's his third strike. And he usually loses to all his names like Jamie Varner, Melvin Gillard, Chris Little and Joe Lozon. So, Felipe Nova is a name, and obviously, despite being, only 7 fights, on his record, he's thought of quite highly by the UFC because they have put him against somebody with nearly 20 fights. So I'm going to go and say that I think Felipe Nova will win. I think he will. I'm going to go for submission. I am going to go for submission, but I'll go for it in the third round. I'll go for it by some sort of bar submission in the third. Pat Barry, he is a sucker punch fighter who I strongly support. A perfect record of 4 and usually wins by TKO. He is facing a guy called Tim Hague with a record of 9-1 who usually wins by TKO. He's never been finished. He's on a 4-fight win streak. The only name on his record is Sherman Pendergast, but he did win, and it's his debut. I have to say, I believe that this is going to be quite a major test for Pat Barry. However, I think that Pat Barry will do very well. I'm going to go for him. I'm going to say this is going to be a stand-up war between the two, and I see Pat Barry taking it by TKO in the first. Moving on, Brock Larson, 25-2 with 17 submission wins. He's on a 4-win streak with wins over people like Carlo Prata, John Alessio and Ryan McGiven. He loses to people like Condit and Fitch. he's facing Chris Wilson, who's 14-5. He usually wins by TKO and submission, usually loses by decision. He's coming off a loss. Loses to people like John Fitch and wins against people like Jay Heron and Rory Markham. Let me just check the time. I don't like Brock Larson. I would like Chris Wilson to win. I think that if he wins, it will probably be by decision. My worry with this, so that's my prediction, is that Chris Wilson will win by decision. My worry is that Brock Larson doesn't take many prisoners, and Chris Wilson has had a difficult last couple of weeks in his training with sort of the armed robbery that took place at his house, where he got sort of taken away at gunpoint, didn't he, and driven around town and stuff like that. So I don't know how much that will affect him, his mental state coming into this fight. The next match, Sean Shirk, 33-3, against Frankie Edgar, 9-1, who usually loses by decision. It's no surprise I'm going to go for a Sean Shirk win by decision here. My question here is, what can Frankie Edgar offer that Tyson Griffin couldn't? That's sort of what brought me to that decision. Dan Miller, 11-1, who's never been finished. He's on a 4-win streak since a no contest, with wins over people like Matt Howage and Ryan McGibbon. He's facing Chael Sonnen. Now, what can we say about him? He's got plenty of experience, but he does tend to lose to people who are, well, let's just say I'm going to go for Dan Miller by bar submission in the first, I think. Poor Chael. Moving on to the main events now then. Matt Hughes versus MFSer. Now, MFSer to me is a little bit of a joke. He didn't do so well in the UFC, got cut. Came back in a tough designed for people who hadn't done so well. He fluked his win in the finale, which gave him the right to challenge and attack George St. Pierre when he was not very well in the mind. He won the championship but then lost it, and has injured himself since, and we've been waiting after Hughes injured himself for the two to recover so that they can fight. To me, this is no contest really, short of some kind of fluke or some kind of cheating, naughtiness, low blows. I see that Hughes will win by a ground and pound, probably in the second or third, because I think he might want to string out this execution. So that's really my prediction on that. Lyoto Machida and Rashid Evans. Now, Evans has been not a... I mean, he's got the title, but he's not been particularly charismatic. Lyoto Machida has all the skills to win. I think he will. I'm going to go for him by knockout in the third. However, my one worry is, will anybody be able to get rid of him if he gets the title? And will he be more interesting, or will he just be as boring as he has been before? You know, with Anderson Silva playing silly beggars, the last thing we need is another counter-striker, and the same thing in a different division. And those are my predictions.